people obviously, when they hear this, they wonder, okay, but when is this going to happen? When is the decline coming? And what can we expect if the natural gas production in the US peaks? Is it about, can we talk about 3, 4, 5 years into the future? I know it's very important, very hard to make this kind of predictions, but kind of in the worst case scenario, what's your expectation?
Right. It's almost impossible to make those predictions. Let me just explain for a moment that even if the quality, the performance of individual wells is declining, money makes everything work better. If we just drill more wells, even though those wells are poorer, that's going to keep the production up. Okay, so as an earth scientist, I'm very interested in the geology of the production, but we can't divorce ourselves from markets and capital. And so if we have a lot of capital available, we can temporarily make these supply problems and performance problems seem like they're not a problem. We basically move them into the future. Now, unfortunately, one of the effects or the results of the so-called energy transition is that there is increasingly less capital available for the oil and gas business. That a few years ago, back when you wrote your book in 2015, Johan, everybody wanted to invest in oil and gas. And we were in the US, we were drilling, so many thousands of wells every month. And there was, a company would make some new shares available in a secondary offering, and they would raise billions of dollars in a few hours in the morning because everybody wanted to buy the stock. Because they saw that there was this need and it was going to grow. That's not the case anymore. Okay. And I don't want to, take any time discussing why. It's just empirically true that there's just so much, there's very little outside money available for oil and gas drilling and development, that almost all of it has to come from internally generated funds. So that's a major sea change from a decade ago. And so whereas in the past, we might have been able to sort of smooth over this decline in well productivity with more drilling, that's not the way things are today. We just don't have the capital. And even if companies do, they need to satisfy their shareholders, and their shareholders don't want them to grow. They want dividends. They want stock buybacks. They want to see the stock price go up. And so there's a lot of factors that are conspiring to not fix this problem. Okay. And therefore, in answer to your question, I am quite confident that before this decade is over, we're going to see some serious supply concerns by markets for both oil and natural gas. And it would not surprise me if that happened in a year or two, as opposed to, the 5 or 6 years that we have remaining in this decade. So I can't make a hard prediction, but with the data that I'm seeing, it's just very difficult for me to imagine a particularly hopeful scenario. I mean, anything is possible, and predictions are always wrong. But based on what I'm seeing, I'm quite confident that we're going to be looking at much higher energy prices in 2, 3, certainly 4 or 5 years. I wish it weren't true. The only way to avoid that is if we have a serious economic contraction, which is equally possible. That's not a positive thing, but that is the other most likely way that energy prices would stay or even go lower. It would be a deflationary kind of trend.